Hey all, it's Reddit Jedi here with a new episode from Reddit entitled Parents. We're having a sixth kid we can't afford, so we expect you to give us your college fund. I am F19, am my parents' second child. I have 3 brothers 21, 13 and 7. And a sister, 16. We grew up poor and our parents were often dependent on financial help from relatives, friends etc. for raising us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job and my mom doesn't work, they just kept on popping out one kid after another. My parents are very religious and believe that children are a gift from God. Personally, I think that's total BS. My parents' reproductive choices wouldn't bother me if it hadn't caused mine and my siblings' lives to turn to shit. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys, we had to accept handouts from family members who were better off. We never went out or did anything fun. To top it off, we were well aware that the rest of the family looked down on us for constantly asking for handouts. Now, my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that would be better than our parents' lives. He and I were staying at our parents' place for a while due to the COVID-19 lockdown. One morning, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room. Mom said she had great news. The smile that was forming on my face died a quick death when she said, "We're pregnant." I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so stupid and irresponsible. Do they not have enough financial troubles already that they have to bring in another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was livid. After a lifetime of scarcity because of my parents' stupidity, they still hadn't learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for the kid. My dad told me I would have to give up the money our great-uncle had left me. He had left all 5 of us some money which only we could access when we turned 18. I said, hell no. That money would help pay for my college expenses. He called me selfish for not being there for family. I told them if they couldn't provide for the kid, they should get an abortion. My mom started crying and called me a heartless monster. Dad told me he was disgusted with me. I told them there was no way I was going to pay for their stupidity and the only thing I would be willing to pay for is a termination. What I was really worried about was my siblings' lives getting even worse. My older brother and I have escaped our parents' clutches, but the others, especially my younger sister, will be expected to help take care of this baby. No teenager deserves to have their adolescence ruined by diapers, a screaming baby. I know what it's like, as I had to go through that. It was expected of me to be an unpaid nanny to my younger brothers and sister. My older brother could go out with his friends and have fun, but I had to stay home and help give baths and feed the toddlers. I decided to get some family members involved so they could talk some sense into my parents. I called my mom's maternal cousin. She's one of my favorite people. When I told her that mom and dad were having another kid, she reacted with, "What? Again?" I told her everything and how they expected me to hand over my inheritance. She said she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't, of course I won't. I also called 2 of my first cousins, one of whom is an accountant, so she could explain to my parents how much of a financial liability this baby is going to be and try to convince them to either abort or give it up for adoption. I moved out of my parents' home a few days ago. I was only going to stay there till the lockdown was relaxed. But I just can't bear to listen to my mom's nagging about how this baby is a blessing, and that I want to kill it. I've moved into a friend's basement for a minimal rent. My mom's cousin paid them a visit about a week ago and tried to tell them they weren't doing this child any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. My mom was very rude to my aunt and told her that a woman who chose to remain barren will never understand a mother's love. My aunt never wanted kids nor had any, one of the reasons she's my fave. My dad told her to get out. Aunt told me there was nothing she could do, but she did try. I didn't blame her. The cousin tried to explain the economic impact this kid would have and my mom cried about how everyone was trying to take away her baby, WTF. The intervention didn't do shit. So now I've decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into a hellhole. I'll be maintaining contact with my sister, 16, just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. My older brother is going to stay in touch with all of them, which is a good thing as he can act as a link between me and the other siblings if my parents ever forbid them from talking to me. Otherwise, I'm done with these people. Edit. I want to thank all of you for your kind and supportive comments and for the awards as well. I applaud you. You don't owe them your college fund. They made their bed, they can lay in it. You might want to discuss with your siblings about it signing anything over to their parents if uncle left you all some money. My parents can't touch the money. Only my siblings can withdraw it when they turn 18. My sister will be 18 in a year and a half and I've explained to her that she's going to need it for college. Hopefully I was able to convince her. Replying to you so you hopefully see this. I don't know if someone else has mentioned it in the comments, but it might be worth ensuring your parents can't try to forge your signature or anything like that so they can get your inheritance. I'm not the best to ask about ways to go about that, but I've seen posts before about parents forging signatures or doing something to try ensure that they get their way. Make sure sister doesn't sign 1GD things without having someone else read it first. Don't underestimate your parents' selfishness once they realize no one is going to willingly start throwing money at them for having unprotected sex. They demand your money to finance their life decision, but somehow you are the selfish one. Hell no, it is incredibly selfish of them to expect others to finance their decision in life. It is incredibly selfish to expect your siblings to give up their teenage years and help raise their child. I could go on. I think that the realization that others think differently than we do is a difficult skill to learn for humans. I don't mean knowing that people have different opinions about something, but the idea that the thought processes are different. Some people are honest, and have difficulty understanding why someone would lie, even after learning the hard way that people do. Dishonest people often assume everyone else lies, and when someone is honest, they find that person mentally deficient, foolish. Authoritarian people who feel that they have status assume that others also think a person's worth is based on their importance, money, power, even race or sex, and that inferiors should understand their place and happily defer to their betters. That these sorts of people gravitate to hierarchies that place them as high as possible goes without saying. Egalitarians, who think all people are equally important, have trouble understanding and vice versa. Might be good to get a lawyer involved, just in case your parents attempt to emotionally manipulate, blackmail any of your siblings for the money. Inform the donor units you will do so, to try and nip it in the bud. IFC they know you're willing to take legal action, they might back off. It'll let them know you are dead serious about ensuring your future. I pity that kid if it is born. Your donor units are idiotic if things are as you say, but I expect no less from religious maniacs. You are very cool and brave and I applaud you. I was just about to post something like this. You need to get a lawyer involved. Your parents are like my family, they will manipulate to get what they want out of you and then try to destroy you when they get their way. Your sister is going to end being the one to raise your new sibling, not your mom, and then her life will be tied down before she has a chance to live her life. Even though I ended up hating the woman who adopted me, I am glad that she was not able to have any more children by the time she adopted me. It was my paternal grandparents who adopted me because she had 6 kids and wanted more. Glad you are getting away. I wish you nothing but success so your sister will be almost 17 when the new kid is born. That's good. I wish she was closer to 18, but the closer to her graduation, the better. Hopefully she gets out immediately. I'd get a job and lie to the parents about how much she makes if I were her ex. Waitressing and lie about getting any tips, or at least set herself up with a completely separate bank account as soon as she can, gather all of her essential documents and put them in a safe place too. I wouldn't want anything your parents could use to barter or blackmail her with. I could see someone being like, well, I have your social security card, so if you want it back, something like that. I feel so bad for you and your siblings. Your parents remind me of my cousin. Had 5 kids and lost all of them because she never worked so she could take care of them. There's nothing wrong with wanting or having a lot of kids, but if you can't afford to raise them properly, then at the very least you can try to avoid having them. A married couple we are friends with adopted the guy's nephew because he had been taken away from his sister, drugs, prostitution. At the time they weren't yet married and neither planned to have a kid for years. 3 years later they get a call from the hospital that there's another baby of hers and would they want to take him in. They did, and they love him dearly, but they will never stop being angry about the fact that some awful irresponsible bitch is out there making their family plans for them. I came from the hood where people were popping kids for government money, they just were too stupid to have kids and never protected themselves, they just played Russian roulette with it and its money, they don't have to work. As sad and horrible it sounds, this shit happens, that's why there's so many people with awful childhoods and living in extreme poverty. Over a decade ago one of my cousins had like 7 kids living in a shithole 1-bedroom trailer. She had no carpets or flooring, just bare wood, all the furniture was broken. Everything was covered in human and animal excrement. One of the children was severely disabled and she had the younger kids taking care of her. Just heartbreaking stuff you can't bear to think a mother would do. Of course all her children were taken after years and years of CPS calls, and still to this day she maintains they're still her children, they've all been adopted and have no contact with her, they are her little blessings, and that she never did anything wrong and wants to have more. She will never see any of those kids again and I pray she will never have another. It's disgusting the way people treat their children as mere accessories or an excuse and keep popping them out like it's nothing. Some people are just evil IDK. My cousin lost her first 2 kids to CPS before she even had the others. Instead of getting a job, an apartment, and a stable enough life to get them back, she hooked up with a new baby daddy and had the next 2. Never even tried to get the first 2 back. Baby daddy left, cousin was still couch surfing, and hooked up with another baby daddy, who left her while she was pregnant. Last time I actually saw her, she was about 5 months pregnant, living out of her car, which was full of actual garbage, with a 2- and 3-year-old, and living on government assistance. When CPS took the rest of her kids, she actually tried to get members of our family, including our 75-year-old disabled gran, to adopt them so she could still claim them as hers. Some people just shouldn't be parents. I am concerned about 16-year-old sis becoming a nanny too. My younger siblings were born when I was a teen. A lot of child sitting fell on me and not my older brother. I was seen as unoccupied because I spent a lot of time writing, drawing etc., and me meeting with friends was not a scheduled obligation. My brother participated in outdoor activities, band practice, etc., and was out a lot. My mom didn't work, but when I got home from school she was eager to pass the babies to me and go out with my dad, run errands etc. Sometimes this was supporting my brother's activities while I babysat. I have to say that I don't think me being a caregiver was healthy for me or my baby siblings. I did not have the emotional maturity and patience needed. I was resentful and cold towards them because of the frustration I felt for being forced into child care and the lack of control I felt for my own life. Eventually I became more empathetic and realized my siblings were innocent in their part and my frustration was misplaced. All of my siblings are adults now and I love them dearly, but I do look back with some confusion of what the heck my parents were thinking deciding to try for more kids back then when we lived in a tiny household and lived very modestly. This age before a young adult sets out for college is so important. It's not the time for them to be a nanny. It's the time to figure out who they are and what they want to do. Also, it is an important time to develop social skills and personal boundaries. Maybe little sis can move out with big sis or get a roommate. But even so, then the nanny role will fall on the next oldest. Run, girl, run. I watched a girl I went to school with go baby crazy. It went not good at all. Don't get me wrong, she's a good mother. Ish. Not great, but definitely not horrible. She loves the babies, to the point she centers her entire life around her kids. And she wanted more. A boy in particular. Sad thing is she kept having miscarriages. She has 4 daughters. At least each one is predeceased by 1 or 2 miscarried babies. She was desperate for that baby boy and kept trying much to her husband's dismay. He loved his family, he worked hard and adored all 3 of his girls he had at the time. But she wanted that boy. She works in a low-end retail store. Won't drive. They were barely getting by. She got pregnant and miscarried again. So desperate was she for that boy she got pregnant immediately after the miscarriage. The poor baby is so sick, she'll never have a normal life. She's in the hospital monthly, has to have a nurse. They couldn't afford a 4th baby, especially not one so sick. They barely could afford their 3.